Hi, good afternoon. Welcome to this session of Solid Edge University. This afternoon, I'm going to be covering Solid Edge data management capabilities. My name is Sam Estrada. I'm an application engineer here at Swoosh Technologies, and I'll be going through the next two topics today. The first one being Solid Edge's out-of-the-box data management that's available to every user, the Solid Edge Teamcenter integration that's part of the Teamcenter portfolio. Afterwards, we'll have a little breakout session to answer any questions. To begin with, Solid Edge has a built-in data management system that's available to you right out of the box. It helps you manage Solid Edge data. It also gives you some basic tools so that way you can capture properties. You can also prevent duplicate file names, provide fast search, and where use capabilities. It also has a built-in tab now in the menu ribbon that allows you to access these commands needed for the Solid Edge built-in data management to access them a little more readily and all in one single spot. That way you don't have to go around hunting for each one of these as you go along in the designing. We're going to take a look at these capabilities in the next demo. So here we go. So let's take a look at the Solid Edge data management that's available out of the box. If you go into the Choose the PDM integration application, you'll see an option in there that activates the data management portion. There's some other sections for Teamcenter, but right now, as long as we have Solid Edge Data Management active, that turns on some of the options that we can use with Design Manager inside of Solid Edge. So going into Solid Edge, we can take a look at the options. And here in the options, we got to manage, and then we have a checkbox that's pretty much telling us that Solid Edge Data Management is active. We also have two locations defined for our vault. This is essential in order for the system to actually function. There's also a fast search text file, and here it also defines our vault location. So right now I have two of them in there, but Solid Edge does define these. If you ever need to change them inside here in the options folder. And again, there's some other options that we can go through. The custom properties is important. If you're familiar with the prop seed text file, you can add in your own custom properties. And this is where the values get derived from. It's located there in your preferences as well. You can go in and just make sure you follow the syntax. It is kind of tricky, but you can add in your own custom properties. And what Solid Edge will use these. It'll leverage them against the Windows indexing service that's part of the Solid Edge data management. So once you set your properties, you can press this button here and it'll set the custom properties, push that into the index, and then you can rebuild the Windows indexing service. If we look at the Windows indexing service, this is straight out of the box with Windows. Those are my two vault locations. They're defined. We can get down into the granular level on subfolders if you wish, but rebuilding the index is key. It kind of takes a while depending on how many files you have stored within your vault. The life cycle is important too because these are predetermined folders that you set up within your vault. These control the pre-release, the release, and the obsolete portions of the life cycle. So if you can look here in my vault area, I have my obsolete, my pre-released, and released. You don't have to name these quite the same, but these will hold the different files as they go through the progression of the life cycle. So anything that's in work is pre-released. Anything that's been released over to, say, out in the shop or to a supplier, things like that, the files will automatically migrate over to this area while they're being released. And this pretty much entails that it's read-only, and then when a part gets obsoleted is when another revision goes in and takes its place on the release side. So Solid Edge will take care of moving these files for you. And within each one of these folders, this is where those properties come in that we set up in the prop seed. These properties get pushed in through the Windows indexing service and allows us to use them within Windows. And here you can see I've got a whole myriad of properties to choose from. Not only the ones that, Solid Edge has some predefined ones. I can also turn on, say, the revision number, which is nice, but which allows me to search through and quickly see what the revision of each component, and it's quickly modifiable through the tables using your Windows commands. What this also opens the door for is searching. So doing a keyword search, say on material name, plastic, you can see that the system will automatically go and cycle through, bring me up the best results for the word plastic. Works for anything that we have, again, set up in our prop sheet. So PVC, plastic, you can also look for part numbers. Uh, Normal window searches, apply, but we get to leverage what we added in through Solid Edge and whatever metadata we added to the actual files or properties we added to the files and search for them now inside of Windows, enhancing our search capability, enhancing our reuse, because there's a lot of times that we have to go and find things. And again, each one of these columns is customizable, so you can reorient them, organize them the best way to fit your business process. So if status is important, revision is important, you can turn those on in each one of your columns, and then through Windows, you can apply them to each one of the subfolders. There is a document naming rule that you can apply and put into effect. You can add a prefix. There's a number generator that'll give you the next sequential number as well. And then there's some basic workflows. So pretty much what we do inside the design manager, it's kind of a one-step, send out an email. Very, very basic, very rudimentary, but again, you can use that and leverage it. Going back to the assembly now, we take a look at our little espresso machine. We can see that this subassembly over here is checked out, and we have our full data management tab that allows us to access these commands very quickly. We can update the status, get latest info, especially on this assembly or any part that we have open. We can also access the data design manager. And if you're not too familiar with the design manager, it's a very important tool that we use inside of Solid Edge. For revisions, we can actually go to the Pathfinder and initiate a revision, or go through the actual menu ribbon to initiate the revision of a part. So if we want to go ahead and make a change to a part that's released, things like that, go through the life cycle. We can also leverage the design manager. And again, like I said, if you haven't used the design manager in the past, it's a very powerful tool that we use to manage Solid Edge data, especially part files, because it respects the links. It writes background information, so it moves files from one location to the other. And you can see here we leverage it in design management because we can also change the status of each one of these part files through the design manager. So you can see we have very different variety of statuses we can choose from, released available. And when we do change it over, you can notice that a couple of things change. One is the file location. So it's automatically going to migrate this file from one location to another, depending on the action that's about to be performed. Okay, so right now this is it's a revision 1. And if I want to tell the design manager to go ahead and process this, I just say perform action. And the design manager will go ahead and take care of this process for me, releasing it, changing the status of the file, giving it a check mark, making it read only, and then moving it from the pre-release to the release folder. Okay, all that's done behind the scenes. The assembly stays intact. I don't have to worry about broken links anytime soon. There's also pack and go, different things we can do with Design Manager. Probably talk about that during another session. So going back to the assembly, let's take a look at a different scenario for using revise and release functions. So let's go down and take a look at the broilers here. We can see that we got a little plastic box that runs through, kind of acts like a hose guide. Also has a drain at the bottom. Well, we have a couple of hoses going through this, and if we open it up inside of Solid Edge, we can see that it's released not only by the red check mark that's listed in the Pathfinder, but by this big dialog box sitting right over here. And if I want to make any changes to this, I've got a couple options. I can do a save as, or I can do a revise. I can do a revise straight from Solid Edge, and you can see that what it'll do is it'll automatically bump it up to the next revision level, which is 2. You could be alphanumeric. It's up to you. It also places the new copy into the pre-release component. So again, it's doing this manual process automatically in the background. All I have to do is tell Solid Edge that yes, I want to create the new revision, and now I can go ahead and make my changes to the actual part components. And in this particular instance, I'm just changing the size of each one of the holes to give it a little more room for the hose. So I'm just adding about a 0.5 mm to each one of these. Now, because it isn't ordered, I do have to go ahead and cycle through and make sure I hit all the cutouts that were placed in here. So quickly go ahead and make a change this one over here to 9, and that completes my change for this particular part component in my revision. So I can save it, and then I can go up to my data management tab and open up the draft file that's associated with this part. Mainly what I want to do here is update the information and make sure that it's reading the current revision level, make sure that my title block has all the correct metadata, uh, and is ready for, say, the next phase in releasing the actual part component. Because if one releases, then the other, I want both of them to release at the same time. So this being Rev 2, I can go ahead and do a, say, I wasn't sure where this part was actually being used. So far, it's just being used in one single draft and in the top level assembly. So I also have my check in and check out buttons down over here. So prior to releasing, I can make sure that everything has been checked in. Prior to releasing, I know I've got a one draft that's going to follow me through. So again, these are the tools that I can utilize and leverage against my data using just out of the box capability. So switching back over, let's go ahead and close and save this back up. Going into the actual assembly file, there's my new change. So it updated the information there. There's my Rev 2. So again, all this is automatic in the background. Now, if I want to go ahead and release the part, I can go into my design manager again. Again, I save out my assembly. The program automatically switches over to the design manager. And that way I can have a little more flexibility and control over my life cycle portion that I'm about to engage in. So while this thing loads, it's going to give me a full listing. The component parts are right here. They're in the pre-released. I have both the part file and the draft. So mainly just want to find it quicker. I can copy the name over there, and then using the find function inside of Design Manager, I can search for that part quite easily. So let me maximize here. Here we go. Let's find our little boiler part, little plastic part. There it is. There's Rev 2. I can run a quick where used. It'll process through the vault, and you can see that there's my draft file. So normally, parent is the actual draft, and when you do searches, here I can go backwards in this particular instance. So there's my part, there's my draft, and the only thing I can do now is get ready for my release process, and you can see that both of them get status. They're going to stay at Rev 2, but again, the automation going on in the background, it's going to change the status, but it's also going to move it from one folder to the other. So do a couple of processing steps. Take a look at the log files if necessary. It's going to generate one every single time I perform one of these actions, and the assembly will reload. Again, the design manager is writing in all these background links, so I don't have to do it myself. Find the part in the list. There it is. And then there's my draft file that also got moved over. So again, all this is automated in the background. There's my Rev 2. I am ready to go. If you look over here, not this folder, but my components folder, you can see that the pre-release is gone. And it should be inside of my release folder, components. We'll just do by date modified. There's my draft, there's my part. Okay, and again, all this was automated through the system. And if I had any previous released, this was one of the earlier component parts. This one's been obsoleted automatically using that setting I set in the options. So if I take a look at the status on this one's obsolete now. So it went from this one to Rev 1 to Rev 2. I released Rev 2, so the original one automatically got pushed back to the other folder. If I need to bring it back, I can bring it back by using revise again later on. But basically, I get basic functionality for a life cycle. So going back to the assembly now, we can take a look at the plastic box here that we just released out. And if we take a look at the actual part component, which would be this one over here, we can see in the Pathfinder, shows to be released. And we open it up, we will see the banner that giving us the notification that's released. We could do a save as or revise on it in order to start making changes to it. If we take a look at the draft file, the draft file also has the same read-only assistant dialog box telling us that, hey, this is read-only, we can't make any changes to it. So the out-of-the-box data management portion helped us, take some of the life cycle things that we normally would think about, automate some of the processes, and making the files movable from folder to folder, a background process that we don't have to worry about. So we took a look at some existing designs. Here I'm just going to create a quick sample part, uh, basically just a sphere, and go into the file properties we haven't taken a look at yet inside of the design management tab. Now this file properties tab we inherited over from the Teamcenter portion. So it's a different layout, different view if you have Solid Edge 2022 installed. We can enter in as many properties as we want here on one single screen. Uh, Anything that, probably custom properties too. If we had these built into the template, we would be able to fill this out in one single location or coming out of the prop seed folder. If we had prop seed information, we can go ahead and bring that in as well. So here, just go ahead and enter in, say, the company name. I could add the metadata in. And it's as simple as clicking apply. Apply then saves that information, saves that back into the file itself. Then from here, I can go ahead and save the actual file. And you notice it's bringing me up inside the pre-released component area. So I don't have to go back and search through my directories. I know where the pre-released items are going to get located. I can access them fairly quickly through here. And if I go take a look now, the automation, let me go and close out the file. Look at the file folder now. We can see that, oh, there it is. Let's go back, pre-release, and work key. Let's go components. There we go. There's my part. It automatically nested it there, and then whenever I go and make a new part, it'll, go to the lifecycle portion. I can create this whole process right over again. So that is your basic overview of Solid Edge data management. Now that we've seen the Solid Edge data management capabilities that are available to you outside of the box, we can review real quick. So every single seed of Solid Edge has this capability. There's virtually zero IT overhead cost because we're just utilizing what the Windows services we have. We have check-in, check-out capabilities. Where used, we can do searches within Windows against properties to try to find the data that we're looking for. We can also utilize the design manager to facilitate our life cycle of our particular parts or assembly, so we can go from available to released to obsolete. And with all this coming out of the box, every user can go ahead and take advantage of these solutions and features that are available to you inside of Solid Edge. Now let's take a look at Teamcenter integration for Solid Edge. This is also known as the SEC, which is the embedded client. And this provides the connectivity between Solid Edge, the mechanical CAD program, and the Teamcenter PLM platform. The integration is pretty transparent. It's embedded within Solid Edge, so the user doesn't have to learn another interface in order to use and interact with the database. There's also a built-in active workspace GUI, which we'll get into in the demonstration, but we can access data within Solid Edge and Teamcenter very seamlessly. It also leverages the Teamcenter PLM portfolio, which allows the users or the company that you're with, it allows you to grow further outside of the bounds of what you had in the out-of-the-box capabilities of data management. A lot of tools available within Teamcenter. There's a lot of powerful things that we can take a look at. We can spend about an hour taking a look at all these special features, but for now, we're going to focus in on some of the primary functions of Solid Edge and Teamcenter, and how we go about performing some of these basic tasks within a managed environment. So with that said, let's go ahead and take a look at Solid Edge and Teamcenter in action. Okay, so now let's take a look at Solid Edge and Teamcenter. So much like we did before, we go to choose our PDM integration, and here we can see we selected the Teamcenter tab. Down below, of course, we have Teamcenter integration for Solid Edge, the SEEC selected. This comes with this gets configured if once we install like a rich client, so the application that one of the GUIs that interacts with Teamcenter, we install that and it opens up this portion here. We can select this option. There's another option over here in the start menu that activates the SEEC specific programs. So if we want to see those inside of the start menu, click that. That'll open up and it'll practically show these applications right here. So there's one that helps define the Teamcenter environment or the server that you're connecting to. We have template importation. We have add to Teamcenter interactive, which allows you to add non-managed data into a managed environment. And the way you do that is you use a data prep tool over here, and it helps you write all the correct properties and prep the data in order to import to Teamcenter. We have two applications that run, or there's a side-by-side application that runs along with Teamcenter. One, it's called the structure editor. This allows you to manipulate, clone, small to large assemblies much faster than what you can do inside of Solid Edge. So there's a separate application built for that. Very powerful, saves you a lot of time, increases your productivity, of course. So those are all accessible through here or through your start menu once you activate them from there. Again, you can launch Solid Edge from the particular integration too. So let's go ahead and launch that. So while Solid Edge is launching, Teamcenter, compared to what the data management portion that comes out of the box, this does require a server installation with software, and then it uses a database backbone such as SQL or Oracle in order to manage manage all the data we put in there. The cool thing is that Solid Edge connects you directly to the database, and it gives you tools to interact with the database directly from the actual program itself. So here you can see, if I go back to the splash screen, I can log in. I'm logging in using credentials that are set up within the database, so it's a secure database with certain permissions granted to certain users. So here I'm going into the engineering group that's part of the Rapid Start overall group. I'm playing the role of an author, and my username allows me to access the correct licensing and access the correct permissions that are set for by the administrator. That allows, it also allows for traceability of parts that I create, also when I participate in workflows, audit histories, things like that. So that's one of the things you don't get out of the box capabilities of data management. So Teamcenter, when I log in, it's going to display the correct group and role that I belong to. So from here, there's several ways I can access the database. One being the rack, two being through Solid Edge or through our file open new commands. But there's also a web-based GUI that's embedded into Solid Edge and is also accessible through any HTML client, and it's called Active Workspace. So basically, this is just running off of a URL. We're already logged in. We're logged in as Ed, so it carries my credentials from Solid Edge, so I don't need to log in twice. It has my group and role and everything. So this would be my little home screen. This is how I interact with the database. So this is different than what Windows is what the Windows and the data management package that's coming out of the box from Solid Edge. In Teamcenter, we look at data just a little bit differently. Inside of Teamcenter, everything revolves around the product. We're a product-centric database, not a document-centric database. So when we look for particular when we look at particular assemblies, particular piece parts, whether they be solid edge NX or if we're looking at data, okay, everything is compartmentalized into what we call an item and an item revision. So each one of these little containers, it's a part, but this is actually a revision of this component. So what I'm looking at a hook right now. This is Rev A of the component. And of course, this is an assembly because we have a complete BOM view layout. Okay, I get an overview over here. So this is all meta properties that are populated by the actual assembly inside of Solid Edge. So we're looking at Rev A of the part. It's an adjustable clamp assembly. If we had any other properties, they would fill in right over here. We have some forms, of course, these are kind of like product cards. So this can hold extra details, extra information. I always like saying that, these property cards or any like this metadata that we bring in properties from Solid Edge is kind of stuff you would write outside a vanilla envelope back in the old days, or write on a piece of paper or put inside a title block too. Just things are a little more automated now because we can actually grab this information from Solid Edge, map it into Teamcenter, and then once you do it once and then reuse it over and over again, that type of thing. So when we look at this particular item revision, we can see that there are some attachments. Okay, this particular one has one attachment and it's the Solid Edge assembly. So this is the actual file. So this file is nested underneath this item rev or container. So I can throw all sorts of pieces of data in here. We'll see a couple different examples as we move along, but just remember that when we're dealing with Teamcenter, we're dealing with all types of data, not just CAD data. We're not just going in with this actual file. There's other pieces of data we can attach to this, take a look at, review, things like that. The other thing too is, like I said, it's not quite a Windows environment. It's more works like Google or it works like your favorite website. So with the search capabilities, you're not looking for specific one type properties. You can search all sorts of different things. Here I search the entire database and I'm giving my search results over to a kind of graphical display. I can see that there are about 173 files in the database. There's about 14 docs and there's one that's categorized as part. So I get a visual queue, also get a visual listing right over here on this side. So I can filter on through either by scrolling or I can use my filter options over here on the left hand side. So I can filter by the categories listed there. I can also drive down to the different types of data that's saved within the database. So I got Excel spreadsheets, I got PDFs, text files. If I narrow it down to a PDF, I can take a look at one of them. So this would be a PDF of a bolt, This also has other data going along with it. So like I remember I alluded to this earlier, we can house different types of data within Teamcenter, not just the CAD data, but also documentation or document data. So it works as a great data management tool. The other thing you'll notice is that when we look at these got little symbols down at the bottom. Okay, you'll see these little symbols pop up here and there. They could be a checkbox, it could be a number, flag with a different type number, different color. That just means that these have been statused or these have been put through a business process to where they've been approved, reviewed, or gone through some sort of workflow that preserves the history at that particular moment in time. So it kind of puts a big read-only type condition on these pieces of data, preserving it until it's revised later. But the point of that is to preserve that history at that moment in time. That way, if something does, like say it was a production release and we need to go back and check to see why this was approved at that current state, we can always go back and look at the logs, look at the reports, why it was released, and then make changes, appropriate changes going on down the path or going down the timeline. So that's available. So we can status all different things. It's a complete robust system. Like I said, you'll see a couple of these as we're going through. So if you have any questions, again, bring them up later on during our breakout session. Okay, so we got all different types of data we can sort through. We're going to be kind of focusing in on this particular assembly here, and I'm kind of going through kind of the same thing that I did with the data management side. So directly out of this interface, I can go ahead and load this assembly into Solid Edge. And one of the other benefits that we get out of working within a managed environment like Teamcenter is that we have a way of increasing your productivity and increasing the amount of time that you spend working versus the time you spend actually downloading stuff and waiting for stuff to actually load into your system. So very first initial download, what you end up doing is you end up pulling the entire assembly over to your machine. So that's why it takes a little longer for the first initial go, because I'm grabbing all these parts and placing them into my session over here. Once they all come into my session, I load it up here. Everybody's used to Solid Edge. Okay, I got a new tab called Teamcenter, and while this stuff is over here in my session, it's actually getting placed in what we call a cache. So it's a local file folder here on my machine that's storing all this pieces of data as it came down. So as you can see here, there's all the parts that are listed, all these, and have been downloaded over here to my box. I can synchronize information. I can do massive check-ins, check-outs. I can download. I can even work offline. So I could literally go in here and check all this stuff out, go out to the field, work on it, work on this particular assembly, make some changes, make some notes, whatever I can do inside the Solid Edge, and then get back to the office or connect to a VPN, work online, and re-upload all this information back into the database. So as the information gets taken, I pull it out of the database, the work offline, I can check it out. And, kind of the concept of check in and check out is it's just like the library. If I check it out, then nobody else can work on it. There's a copy saved in the database. I'm walking away with a copy that I can work on, and then I can upload and check it back into the database, allowing other people to see the changes I made, but two, allowing other people to edit and make changes as long as it's working. It's as long as it's a working part, they can go back and change unless it goes to a release or some type of workflow. But again, so we got a local cache working. So if I go in and change a couple of parts, I'm only transmitting the changes to those couple of parts into the database. I'm not having to re-upload everything and then re-download everything. And this is very manageable. You can set multiple caches as you work. So you can have one cache for each individual project you're working on. And then you can work on the assembly as you wish. Here, I have the top level assembly checked out to me. So I'm working on I would say I'm working on relationships over here, placing things in. It's free for everybody else to work on. So everybody else can work on a different component piece while I'm doing a top level change, and I can save it and I can go ahead and update the assembly file. I can synchronize any changes that come with it. If you notice, there's one particular assembly that's already been checked out to somebody else. Okay, say Don can be working on this entire assembly over here while I'm working on the top level assembly. He saves, I update. So you get the instant feedback over here inside the Pathfinder. The other cool little things that you can do is, with working with, say, Teamcenter in particular, we can, since we're linked back into the database, we can do searches within the database. We can find parts that are hard to find. I need to find, say, this bucket right here. I want to take a look at the information. What does Teamcenter have to say about this bucket? I can go in and click, and using the web GUI, it'll go ahead and automatically query the database and bring up its informational card. So I can see that this is a red bucket. It's part number. If there's the other attachments to this, there are the pieces of data. If there's a sheet that comes with it, but I can grab all the information, go to the single source over here, pull that info. Is that great? Directly from my Solid Edge session. So I literally can stay within my CAD product and still do other things, work within the confines of the database and just activate those different processes through Solid Edge. You still do have the traditional, if I go open, I'm not opening off of my desktop anymore. I'm opening off what's inside the database. Okay, I got an inbox. I've got a home, which is my custom work area within Teamcenter. I've got folders that are set up that I can set up. So right now I've got Oh, I've got files in my new stuff because anytime I create something new, the file gets placed into the new stuff folder and I'm able to retrieve it at will. I can also separate them out. I've got list controls. I can look at things in a complex or simplified format. I have filters over here as well where I can tell it to show me all the assemblies, all the parts, or show me everything, and it'll filter on through my list and show me that. So you can still navigate through the panes using the standard open, browse type of things, but it's all going to go into the database. Okay, we're all pulling information now from a shared stored location. So with this bucket here that we kind of went to earlier, if I go ahead and scroll to it over here in the Pathfinder, you can see it's about right there. I can do a where used, so double check to make sure that there's no draft involved. It's just a single part that's being used inside the main assembly and the subassembly right here. Okay, so I can do that search. I can also do the open draft type of thing, but I'm going to go ahead and edit this little guy in place. Go ahead and make a change to it. Okay, so automatically, depending on what we have our settings on, it automatically checked it out to me. So now I have complete rights to this particular bucket. Okay, I can make all the edits and changes I need to make to it. Okay, if I look at the database, there's a checked out symbol. Okay, so it's checked out to me. I'm working on it. So it's instant feedback going back and forth within the database. So if we take a look at our properties, okay, the Teamcenter layout is what fed into the document management side. So I got all my properties. I can have them being mapped from Teamcenter back into, I can write properties from Teamcenter back into the actual part itself. I can also push information into the database. Okay, so all these are still available to work with. Again, all this information, once you generate once, you can reuse it over and over again inside of the different inside of the database. So one of the benefits of working within a managed environment. Okay, so you get all this. If I take a look at it right now, it's checked out to me and say I wanted to make a quick change. Okay, so let's come over here and let's paint this bucket a different color. Okay, so let's go to the bucket. Let's go ahead and let's paint it blue. Okay, and let's go ahead and save. Okay, when I hit save, I'm saving it to my local hard drive. Okay, that helps cut down on the amount of traffic. So when you're saving all day, I'm saving it to my drive. Once I'm ready to transmit that over to Teamcenter, I can go ahead, hey, Teamcenter, I want to upload this back to the database. You can quickly make yourself a quick backup into the database. So I can go ahead and check this back in. You'll notice that right off the bat, the system automatically gives me feedback. So without being checked out, it's read only. And I have two options to proceed forward. I can either revise it or I can do a save as. So I can make a clone of the part, or I can go ahead and revise it up and say I wanted to make a further change to it. Besides a cosmetic look, maybe I wanted to add an extra feature to it. Okay, so what I can do is I can go ahead and say, you know what, let's go ahead and revise it. Okay, I get a dialog box that's connected again into the database. So as I revise, create these changes, the database is automatically taking care of all this information for me. It's actually, it's creating the files, creating all the linking. See how it updated over here on my, we'll take a look at the main assembly. It went ahead and updated the level in here inside my assembly. So everything automatically keeps up and the system automatically does all this changes for me. So one of the other benefits of working within the managed environment, right? Now that we got it revised, let's go ahead and do a drastic change and something that I wouldn't, say, we've got chickens here. So say I wanted to cut a hole to make a nesting box. Okay. If I come over here, just go through next, say I want to put a lid on it. I can go ahead and do this. This is what this is, a big, we just change this around. The function of this machine now is just to make nesting boxes. Okay, so now we got this thing. We made a drastic change to this, right? Now it's like, all right, what we want to do is go ahead and just do all that upload and save because we have this thing set up to where it does that. Let's go ahead and do that. And let's go ahead and check this thing back in. So from the Pathfinder, I can go ahead and run some of these commands. And I say, you know what, let's check it in, go ahead and uploads it, puts it into the system. So if I want to go in this and say, you know what, I like this design, but maybe we can change it later. Maybe we can do some other changes. We have what we call workflow process that we can initiate from Solid Edge. So say for this particular instance, say I needed just to, say we may change this later, but I want to preserve this initial design for right now. I can always come back to it later on. I just want to freeze this up. So right now I'll say, you know what, this is still in development and I want to go ahead and submit these to a workflow. That way they get statused and we don't change it, but at least I can revise and make another copy, but I still maintain this history. That's mainly what I'm going for. So within the actual, since I'm connected to Teamcenter, I can utilize all the different workflows we have available. Okay, for this particular one, I'm just using a development release. And I'm just going to go ahead and send that off. Okay, so right now this is going through a workflow process. I've got B over here ready to go. So let's take a peek at what's going on over here. So if I go into my inbox, I can see like, hey, I've got a task to perform. I can also get an email notification. And in this particular instance, here's my bucket. I can give instructions, okay, what I can see like, hey, you know what, we're just going to see what happens to this, okay? And I can look at, before I do that, there's all the parts that need to go through the workflow. This is the workflow process itself. It's going to go through one other human check, and then it's going to go to the finish line. Okay, and in between the finish line, we got a little flag here, but it's going to get a status, which is going to be a developmental release. So I can see it graphically of what's about to happen. I can also assign tasks. So I'm going to do the self-review, which I'm doing right now. So we've got the checker. I can assign it ahead of time, do it afterwards, things like that. And then of course I'm going to have history. So as it goes through the process, I'm going to be able to track to see how this thing actually goes through. Instead of doing this manually through the office, I'm doing this all electronically via the database. So the data never leaves Teamcenter. So let's go check to see what Don has inside of his inbox. Okay, so if I go over here, this is Don. Okay, Don can be in the office, he can be in the same city, he could be across the country, he could be out in the field, pulling this up on his iPhone, Android, tablet, wherever he can connect. If we have an outward facing server, it's a URL, so he can get to it across different types of platforms. Here he can go ahead and say, okay, look, he's got a task waiting for him. You can go and click on this task. It's like he's got a task to perform. He's got to do a sign off. Okay, so he can take a look and see the instructions that are accompanying this particular workflow. Down here would be the actual file. So if he's connected, he can actually load up this box and take a look at the change that I made. I punched a big old hole in it. Okay, you can actually go in and again, files are listed over here in the different tab views. So again, gaining information as we move left to right. Everything, you'll see a common theme, you'll see tabs listed over here, and as we click on each one of these tabs, it gives you a different view of the data. Okay, so here we can see that it's lying with Don. It's one more step and it gets approved. There's no other assignment after this, so here he can go ahead and make his decision. Okay, approve or reject. If reject, that goes back to the original owner. He's got different visualization tools he can take a look at, but he's, hey, you know what? Everything looks good. He approves it. He says he's okay with it. So if I come back over here into my Solid Edge environment, as the change gets processed by the database, it'll automatically get reflected over here once I update the status. So you can see now I have a 30. Come back, we'll take a look. We'll see that indeed this has been statused out. And if I Go ahead and edit it in place. You can see that it has a developmental release, getting direct feedback from the database, coming back into the assembly saying, yeah, it's been, all the way to do anything to this now is revise it again, create a new set of data, and do a save as. So let's go ahead and close and return. Let's go ahead and save everything back up to the database. So that is a quick overview of what Solid Edge and Teamcenter have to offer on a very basic level. There's a lot more to this. We could spend another 45 minutes going through different scenarios and things like that. But this kind of gets you a good differentiator between what was available inside of the product data management side and what's on the surface available inside of Teamcenter. So with that, let's go back to the PowerPoint. Great, now that we've seen Solid Edge and Teamcenter working within a basic workflow, there's a lot of benefits that come out of having a PLM system like Teamcenter. One, it becomes your single source of truth. Data is maintained within a server-based environment. Access controls are there by the various groups and roles. Teamcenter is pretty CAD agnostic, so if you're a multiple CAD house, you can manage all sorts of different types of CAD data and still collaborate together with other users. Teamcenter can also manage non-CAD data, a variety of non-CAD data, as we saw in the demonstration. We also have different avenues of growth within Teamcenter. So you can start off small with just using the data management portion, BOM control, workflows, product management, and document management. We can expand out even further to manufacturing, supplier collaboration, quality control. The growth potential within Teamcenter is enormous, and it's a very good ROI on your investment because the product will grow with you. So a lot of benefits of using the built-in data, using both the built-in data management, depending on your use cases. If you need a more robust system, Teamcenter is always a way to go because of the various capabilities that you have with it. So with that, thank you for attending this portion of the Solid Edge University with the data management portion. My contact information, if you need to send me an email or anything, primarily you can get in contact with us by using the support email address listed below, or you can shoot me a note personally over here and I can review any questions that we have. But